break. Anyway, let's start from the beginning here again and talk about the Florida Trail near you at Camp Blanding. And let's talk again about the Florida Trail. Goes from Big Cypress National Preserve in the south all the way up. It splits here. There's a western corridor and an eastern corridor. This is really the main way. Up through the Ocala National Forest, into our neighborhood, along the Swanee, and all the way to Pensacola. So it's about 1,300 miles. Jim Kern, back in the mid-'60s, was hiking on the Appalachian Trail. And he said, man, it'd be neat if we had one of these in Florida. And so he came back, formed a Florida Trail Association, talked to the National Park Service about starting it in Ocala, where they were really amenable to that. So he kind of started building it there. And then it expanded both ways, north and south, to what it is today. The Florida Trail Association is composed of different clubs that have different geographical areas. They maintain the trail in that area. It was designated a National Scenic Trail in '83, and it's still quite not complete. There's still a few places where you need to do road walks and stuff like that, but it really is an amazing trail. And we have quite a few through hikers go through and do that about every year. I think there's through hikers on the trail now. So around us, in the red circle, you see easy places you can drive and do day hikes. Goldhead Branch State Park, which we talked about before Christmas. Camp Blanding, we're talking about tonight. Rice Creek. There's also some trail in the Atonia National Forest and the Osceola National Forest near us. But Goldhead, Blanding, and Rice Creek are really probably the premier hiking places here near us. It's an easy drive. A little further drive away are probably two of the best places for Florida trail hiking. You see, when people recommend, well, where can I go backpacking on the Florida Trail, for 3 days, blah, blah, blah. Most of the time, people are recommending the Ocala National Forest or along the Swanee River. And those are within a relatively easy drive here. And when we were doing live trail hikes, and hopefully do them again, we would go down to the Ocala and do some hikes down there, or go up along the Swanee and do some day hikes along there as well. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the location of Camp Blanding, a little bit about its history, and then we'll take a hike on the trails. So Blanding is on right off of 21. So from 295, you just take Blanding Boulevard south. And through Middleburg and on down. Goldhead Branch is right about here. And then down right below that, right about where this 21 is, well, Goldhead Park is really but here a little ways. Right in here is Treat Road, where you turn left and find the trailhead. So if you go past the Circle K on the right, then you'll come to Treat Road, and I'll show you the turnoff and how to get there from there. It's about 20, 25 minutes after you get off 295. Blanding sits on an ancient formation called Trail Ridge, which kind of runs through the center part of northern Florida. There's several other ridges in Florida that are similar to Trail Ridge. Maybe the first part of Florida to rise above sea level. There's some evidence of ancient Timucua settlements here, but mostly this land was homesteaded and farmed. Zephaniah Kingsley of Kingsley Plantation fame purchased most of this land, used mainly as a source of lumber, maybe some of the pine trees used for turpentine, that sort of thing, and some citrus farming, until the Great Freeze happened in 1895, and that killed citrus farming around here. In 1939, Camp Blanding was formed as a National Guard training center, and it became a major training base during World War II, and there was a prisoner of war camp here as well. Because it's on the trail ridge, there's several sinkhole lakes. Kingsley Lake, you see up here, is the largest, 2-mile diameter, 90 feet deep. That's a big one. And there's several lakes down in the area we're going to hike, which is down this area. So the far southern part of Camp Blanding, here's the trailhead we're going to use, comes up here and then comes back out on 21. So that's the trail down in this area. Let's talk a little bit about this trail ridge. A couple million years ago, it was a swampy island formed over shells and corals, which made the limestone. Volcanics rose and eroded into sand, and a lot of sand filled in here. This runs from maybe the Okefenokee Swamp down toward the Ocklawaha. And then as sea levels dropped, there was more sand and the area rose. This sand holds a lot of valuable minerals for titanium, zircon, and so forth. I think maybe you've heard of all the mining that went on, for instance, at Ponte Vedra Beach, which used to have the romantic name Mineral City. There was zircon mining up in the Regency Square area and in the Arboretum area. And there's still an active mine right across from the trailhead on 21 for the Florida Trail. And that mining is pretty destructive. It's strip mining. So let's take a little closer look at the trail. We're going to start at this trailhead, the Treat Road trailhead, at 6.9 miles, comes back around to 21. So if folks are hiking north on the Florida Trail, they come through Gold Head and they go down the trail this way and out, and then they head around this way and on up toward the northwest. But we're going to hike it. We're going to hike it the other way. So 6.9 miles is quite a ways. You're going to have to leave a car at the other trailhead. I'll show you a couple of alternative hikes to that are a little bit easier to do. There's several lakes which are sinkhole lakes, and then we'll pass through a pretty historic Magnolia Lake State Park. So let's talk a little bit about this. As you probably know, all the state parks in the South and in a lot of places in the United States were segregated. And so Gold Head Branch State Park was built in the 30s by the Civilian Conservation Corps, but it was white only. And it wasn't until the Civil Rights Movement started its second or third or fourth attempt to be accepted that they started to build parks for African Americans. So let's see, Brown versus Board of Education was what, 54, and so through a lot of hard effort, they started to build African American alternatives to segregated parks, and they built Magnolia Lake State Park as an African American park as an alternative to Gold Head State Park. The Florida parks are all integrated in 64. Magnolia Park stayed open for a few years after that and then was given back to Camp Blanding. Let's talk a little bit about some of the features. I'm going to go bottom to top here since that's kind of the way we're going to be doing it. We drove down here. That's our trailhead. We're going to hike up to what's called Lost Lake. You're going to be amazed how beautiful that area is right there around Lost Lake. Then we come over to Magnolia Lake, what was Magnolia Lake State Park. Take a look at what facilities are left there. Trail kind of goes around Magnolia Lake. There's a public boat ramp here that is accessible off Treat Road. And the trail then rings Magnolia Lake up Alligator Creek, rings Lowry Lake, and then comes out on 21. So we'll be taking a look at most of this pretty closely. So this is the start. This was a turn off for 21. You'll see the sign there. And you pull into this parking area here and just park in here. And there's the kiosk for the trailhead. Excuse me. A couple things about this kiosk. There's a big sign right here to tell you whether Camp Blanding is open or closed. They've got some kind of maneuvers going on, or they've got something on where they're going to be using any of that area where the Florida Trail goes through. That sign will tell you it's closed, but you can always check the Blanding website ahead of time and find out. It's usually open. There's also a registration process here. It's a two-part card. You fill out the top and drop it in. You fill out the bottom and carry it with you. Then when you come out, whatever trailhead you come out at, you drop that card in there too. And that's just so they know who's been in there, and it can help them try to find you if you get lost. Okay, so we're going to start going from the trailhead. We're pretty much upland pine area here, really pretty, spaced out pines. This area is fire managed with regular controlled burns. There's a big gopher tortoise hole. Don't forget that that blaze means that the trail is going to turn right. So we just follow the orange blaze. It's pretty easy to find the trail. And we'll come up to Lost Lake. So we're looking at it through the trees there. Like I said, this was a ancient sinkhole. You can tell by the banks on the lake that at some point in time it was a lot deeper, a lot more water in it. And that's true also of the lakes in Keystone Heights, which for a long time went empty and are starting to fill up again. But all these lakes are connected, and they tend to go up and down with water levels and amount of rain and that sort of thing. In the foreground right here, you can see remnants of maybe a creek or a well that was here. We'll take another look at that later, but it's a good place where you can take a look at the underlying limestone in this area. Here's another look at it. You can see all this is limestone here, this limestone ring here. So that's kind of neat to look at. Next, the trail just walks around the lake with the beautiful woods to your right and the lake to your left. You can't beat a couple of live oak trees like that now, can you? Now we're at kind of the far end of the lake. So we're about here and looking back at that limestone area that we saw before. So really a pretty area. You know, if you're with kids or somebody that can't walk very far, just come in here and come into Lost Lake and hanging out. There's a few benches to sit at, stuff like that. Beautiful hike for somebody that can't walk too far, or children that can only do half a mile or so. You're already a winner if you've gotten this far. Now we'll turn away from the lake and head up toward Magnolia Lake State Park, again, following the orange blazes on the trees. And then we arrive at the location for the old Magnolia Lake State Park. So this is another sign that you'll see on the trail going in, then coming back the other way. It's also marked there. And these signs are pretty recent. The one out on Highway 21 that I showed you first, and this one, they've only been up for a few years. So it's about time that these historical markers were put up here. Now we'll just head down that fence line. Now we're coming up to the road that leads into the park. And now we're at the park. You see here on the left, the remains of the old bathhouse. There's a nice covered picnic table here. So you might be about a mile into the hike now. If you only want to do a 2-mile hike, you can hike this far and hang out and then go back. It's a pretty area. So another look at the lake. About 1/3 of a square mile, 40 feet deep. There's 2 docks. There's a dock here, and then there's a dock you can't quite see over here on the right-hand side. So it's a really, really pretty area. And again, lakes are they're almost perfectly oval because they're sinkholes. Now we'll leave Lake Magnolia State Park and head on out. These buildings you see on the right were some kind of a science experiments that were done after the park closed. I think it was a mosquito control type of experiment. Lots of deer moss there. This area is not well traveled other than Florida trail hikers. It's pretty pristine. Beautiful piece of trail here, huh? You can't beat that. Oaks over the trail. I like this tree because it's a host to a number of different hangers-ons. We've got Spanish moss hanging on. We got resurrection fern on the tree, and then we also got a bunch of Christmas lichens. So this tree here is a friendly host to a number of other species. Trail continues with Magnolia Lake on our right, pretty much. We go past an old mining site. We're right here on the left where sand was mined. And then we come to a footbridge that goes over Alligator Creek, thanks to the North Florida Trailblazers, who are the stewards, and they're responsible for this area, built this nice bridge. And we continue on the other side. Beautiful trail, huh? Now we're at the public boat ramp. And so at this point, we've gone about 2 miles. And many times when I've led hikes out here, I just go out to this point and then we turn around and go back for a 4-mile hike because it's a little hard to leave cars, and 6.9 miles is too much for a lot of folks. And I certainly can't by myself hike 6.9 miles and then hike back to my car. So if you want a nice 4-mile hike, going out as far as this boat ramp and then turn around going back, where you got a lot of looks at Magnolia Lake and Lost Lake, is a really, really pretty hike. One of the prettiest. I'd forgotten how pretty it was till I went out there recently and took these photos. And of course, you can also move on from there as well. So here's another shot of Magnolia Lake. If you look to your right, you can't see it on the photo, but you can look to the right and you can see the docks and stuff from the Magnolia Lake State Park. And then this is looking at the lake over to the left. Pretty big lake. But then we just cross the road and we continue following the orange blazes. Goes around the lake, get a few more lake views. Then you head up along Alligator Creek and eventually to the Lowry Lake, which is even a bigger lake. Now we get up to Lowry Lake, we're really in more of a kind of an area you might see down in the Ocala National Forest, more of an oak scrub type of habitat. You see all the deer moss here, low lyme bushes. And eventually you come to an intersection where you turn right to go out to the trailhead, or you can turn left to walk down about a 1/4 mile to a really nice, pretty view of Lowry Lake. So we'll turn left and go down to Lowry Lake and take a peek. So this is Lowry Lake. You can see it's really a big one. 2 square miles, 30 feet deep. It's a lot of water. But this is one of the best views from this point. You get a few lake views along this trail, but walking down here and getting right next to it's probably the best. And then we just turn back up, go straight, follow this road, straight on out, and down at the end, right there, that open area is the trailhead and parking spot right on 21. So that's a quickie look at this trail. It's a beauty. A few years ago, North Florida Trailblazers hosts an annual about a 10-mile hike. I did a hike, And we started at the Treat Road trailhead, walked all the way through Blanding, and then across the street, and then almost all the way through Goldhead. So that was a little more than a 10-mile hike, but we sure saw that. It was really pretty. So just to summarize, we started down there at the bottom at the Treat Road trailhead, walked half a mile-ish there to Lost Lake. Like I say, if that's all you want to do, just walking into Lost Lake and back is worth it. Went a little further to historic Magnolia Lake and the old Magnolia Lake State Park. Went to the boat ramp. That's your 2-mile point. You can turn around there and go back if you want. And then we finished going around Magnolia Lake and then took the trail up that kind of borders Alligator Lake. And then the trail turns there and kind of goes along the edge of Lowry Lake and then turns away and back to the SR State Road 21 trailhead. So that's 6.9 miles if you do the whole thing. But, you know, you can always do a part of it and go back to whatever trailhead you want. But I really think if you're only going to do part of this, start at the Treat Road trailhead. It's a much prettier hike, a lot more interesting views, a little bit of history there at Magnolia Lake State Park, rather than starting at the State Road 21 trailhead. So that's it, folks. There's another beautiful view of the trail as it comes out of Magnolia State Park, and so that's Camp Blanding for you.